Welcome back to another episode, or actually part 2 of the podcast, Unquestioned podcast with Louis de Waare and Willem Himpe. And it's part 2 of large language models run on your own device locally.
Offline edition.
Yes, and the first the first parts we talked about what is the current situation in large language models and what kind of models already are possible to run locally. But now, what will the future bring? What does Louis and I think that will happen? Which companies will be first, and more of that. But first of all, Louis, I would say let's give your raw opinion of what you think will be the future of large language models on a local device.
Strong and determinate prediction about this. First, let's look at the traditional back-end driven LLM that we're used to, like Chatgpt. What we've seen is it's grown exponentially, or it's grown at a very fast pace, you could say, along with hardware, computers, graphics, compute decreasing in price, becoming faster, becoming smaller, and energy possibly costing less, or energy could cost less in the future. So we already know that ChatGPT will get better in a year, in 2 years. We just don't know if it's going to be 10 times better or 20 times better. It's going to be a lot better. So we already, if we just follow the trend and we follow Moore's law, which dictates that compute doubles in speed every year, then we will for sure get cheaper, better LLMs connected to the internet.
Yes, okay.
And there are so many unknowns about what large language models will enable. The way I like to frame it is, imagine if you're living in a command line world, command line being the old way to interact with computers, which was just a terminal. Terminal is a little bit like a prompt, so we're going full circle.
Yeah, to maybe give some context for people who don't program, command line is like where you on a lower level talk to the computer with specific kind of words that you have to place there, and then the computer knows what to do. And then it's changed into kind of a graphical user interface, so that you really see kind of big buttons and input fields where you could type in, and it's much more natively for people to give information to the company, to the website or to the computer to get feedback or data back from the device.
The old school hacker approach.
Yes.
Green blinking letters that you see that make you feel productive. Before the mouse was there, before anything visual, anything 2D. It's called the GUI, the graphical user interface. Before that was born. So imagine going back to that world. If you've never clicked on a button, that's hard to imagine, or tapped. There was no touchscreens back then. No visual UI, user interface. It's hard to imagine, but you have no idea the type of applications that can exist if you're only used to the old school text-based way. And I believe we're at that same point when it comes to LLMs. Not that something visual is gonna come, although we can certainly talk about that on another occasion. But just all the applications in a broad sense, all the benefits that this is going to unlock and enable, it's going to be way more than just writing a task list for you, writing a tutorial. It's going to be integrated in all parts of life, all the devices that we use, and we're not there yet. And it's going to make, I don't know, stuff work that we just cannot imagine. So that aside, that's the unknown. What's going to come. But there is one thing that we do know, and that is the speed and the performance, the accuracy will increase. That's a one-dimensional prediction we can make with great confidence, knowing that compute and energy, speed and size will all get better in the future.
Okay, like if you let me strawman that, even if strawman, I mean steelman that, even if, for example, I believe you can never predict the future. You can make a good estimation, but it's practically impossible to know what's going to happen. But based off Moore's law, so that the amount of computation doubles on a chip doubles every 2 years, I think. If that keeps being true, and as well that we see now electricity generation keeps dropping more and more, that then these large language models, because they have more power and more energy and more parameters, so more parameters means the more parameters, the more it can learn in a way. It's not a perfect correlation, but you could say it like that. That then as well, the model will be stronger, but doesn't. But what actually Sam Altman and OpenAI has been saying is the model's getting better, often by little tweaks here and there, and then they get significant improvement. Does it matter that much that this massive amount of computation?
I believe so.
Don't you think we just need to keep finding little things to?
Well, that certainly helps, but I believe even without any more scientific or engineering breakthroughs. It's just been the whole arc and the whole history of this industry has just been, okay, GPT-1, I don't know, looks interesting. GPT-2 shows promise, and yeah, we're just betting the farm on this thing getting even better and being hopefully useful in the future. Because don't forget that OpenAI took a massive $1 billion in funding. So they must have strong conviction, and if you really think about it, all that really improves with tech, with certainty, is the performance of the hardware.
Yeah.
Looking at the iPhone, the speed doesn't double every year, but it increases dramatically and enables new things and more efficient battery life. That's why you can record 4K on your iPhone, HDR video, and the battery still lasts reasonably long, and the screen can get brighter. It's all just hardware improvements. And then, okay, you have to be creative and think of applications for it. But I think that is one pretty good way to make an estimation. It's not a definite thing, like on July 2026, this is the power we're going to have, but it's a good estimation of the general direction.
Of following the trend that you can have more confidence saying that this will be the future.
It's a trend I'm most confident about. All the rest, you've got politics, you've got people. These are larger, complex systems that you just cannot make...
too irrational to predict.
And too complex.
Yeah, well, you kind of hinted already at an answer to my next question. And my next question would be, is which big player do you think will come out with this massive, much stronger large language model, which will be connected with everything and can solve all our little things that we really want fixed by, let's say, a human assistant, but now it will be our phone. And you hinted a bit at Apple. I don't believe that it will be that player, but I'll let you first.
Yeah, cool. Let's have a debate. It's no secret I'm quite bullish on them with whatever they do, because they're so uniquely placed in the industry, and they are the most valuable company today. Now, why are they in a unique position to take advantage of this? Twofold. In order to have a competing model, you need to be a large company. So not that it excludes startups, but it's way easier for Google, Facebook, and Amazon to develop a model of their own. And so I expect Apple to do this.
It's funny that OpenAI is still a massive company, but not a monopoly company that, let's say, found the first way to make it that big in the public eye.
Because they have nothing to lose. But again, Apple is really the best at exploiting the last mover advantage.
So because you just said that, because they have nothing to lose, is that why you think, because Apple, Facebook, probably they already, from previous research, you've seen that they have kind of models that do as well large language models. Why is it then, because they have nothing to lose, or they have a lot to lose, those big companies, why they didn't release it? Why by releasing like, oh, this is our large language model, a similar Google Chatgpt? Why didn't they do it?
Well, also because as you grow larger, it's harder and harder to invent stuff because it just requires a type of non-consensus obsession,
That's true.
obsessive commitment that is harder to. Yeah, there's a reason that a startup within a company doesn't pan out usually. So that is harder on the one hand, and but Apple doesn't really need to. They are excellent at again being the last mover, the last to bring OLED to their phones, but now they have the best and most accurate representation, noise cancellation. They figured that out, wireless audio, all that stuff. They're not scared of being the last one because usually when they appear, that's when the technology is fully commoditized and it just works. It's no longer technology. You don't think about it. It's just expected to work. That's what they're best at. And here it's the same story. They are very much a measure twice, cut once company because they can afford to. The church thinks in decades, and Apple does the same. They only need a good new trend, new product category every 5 years, say, and then relentlessly out execute and outsell the competition.
Okay, I would like to respond with two ways. One, I agree on kind of why a startup can kind of take this big risk, because often when a company is growing, they become more inner politics, and as well so many more decision takers that kind of even a small thing that want to be released, there's a lot of people that need to say yes, and often in these in these big companies, they want everyone aboard. They don't want to upset everyone, so that's kind of limits growth and innovation. Sure. The second thing that I would want to respond, I don't think it's going to be Apple that's going to be first, but it's going to be Google. Because I know Google they have as well released BART, which is like their version of a large language model that's very commutative, like ChatGPT. But I still believe that they kind of have so much that as well. The company started from research, and this is still a very still more research-focused sector or industry. Large language models, deep learning, but large language models is a part of that. And I do believe that they will crack the code, because as well they have they found a way to kind of index the whole web and find information very, very fast to every person in the world. What is kind of, I forgot their their mission is to
organize the world's information.
Organize the world's information. Well, now is it just an extra layer of bringing that world of information to people faster and kind of in a more intuitive way. So I do believe like they have an advantage in that, but basically as well because of the origins of the company, it's so research based that eventually they will crack BART, and they already have so many more customers.
I completely disagree. Like the only reason we talk about BART is because we're into the scene, but nobody has heard of it, and the research angle doesn't hold water either, because Google invented the transformer and they just gave it away. And
they invent the thing or the little Lego block where the
thing about Apple,
build up.
They don't have to invent it. They can let others take the risks, and just adopt it like they do with everything in the end. And Google, in my opinion, is just the most fragile because they have such an incredible business model, but the worst number in business is one, they don't ever want to be dependent on just a single source, and their ad system on the Google search page is such a cash printing machine.
That's correct.
That it just overshadows everything else they do. They're literally looking for stuff to invest in because they need to say, hey, we need this. We're not a monopoly.
Yeah.
We need an excuse, just like small businesses that always like try to invest, so you can say, I need costs. I need to make costs. It's exactly what they're doing. They just literally have too much money to go around, and they need an excuse, not for regulators to tell them, hey, you're more of a bank than a tech company because you just have so much cash and you don't know what to do with it. So I also think that the engineers there are just more lazy. Not to say that they're less lazy at Apple, but at Apple they are still
There's less pressure on things that they release.
yeah,
I would say.
yeah.
Than-
And Apple's just looking to sell devices, and they will just incorporate whatever makes their devices more useful. And they have such a better moat with hardware and with a variety of hardware. So if suddenly desktops and laptops no longer sell, well, they still have AirPods, which is a killer category on its own. So yeah,
You might be right.
and again, I don't mean Apple is going to win this LLM thing. Definitely not. They're not going to have the best one. But specifically for the offline implementation and bringing benefits to the user, they will make most users familiar with the native daily integration of large language models, that's what they've always been doing. They just ship stuff, ship the spirit of California, well-designed products in the palm of their hand that make you feel closer to God because they work like they should work.
Okay, well, I agree about that on device because that is well where Apple is most and Google. They do have their Pixel phones.
No, that's not. These are all distractions. The Pixel is there for.
I know.
Say, hey, we're in hardware, but actually, of all the FAANG companies, of all the large companies, they are the most dependent on one source
Income.
of income, and Apple again has a lot to lose, but it also plays to their advantage because they have this massive user base, 2 billion devices with Siri enabled. So as soon as they crack the code, either internally or they just
Or see someone else cracking the code and reverse
they
engineer.
open AI if they have to pay top dollar, pay premium for the best LLM, which they can afford to. Then they just boom release it onto the world, onto their 1 billion users in September.
Yeah, and then it will be again a massive moat or kind of advantage while people will be even more locked into Apple and will never want to go back to their other devices.
Yeah, and since we mentioned predictions, I just want to give some rough estimates. And so someone in OpenAI said that it will take 2 to 3 years for a Chatgpt GPT-4 level model to work locally.
Okay.
I think it's more going to be 1 to 2 years, but that sounds so promising.
So I just think an engineer in OpenAI has more knowledge than
Yeah, but
why do you say that? If an
Because-
engineer that works on it says 2 or 3 years, why do you think it will less like one?
because it's not in their in their advantage to have that exist. They are API driven, built around this backend system.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna have self-hosted alternatives, but for now it's not their thing. And with what I've already seen, my professional estimation is 1 to 2 years. And again, the reason why
Faster the better for the
it's not here yet is because you have to understand that GPT-4 is massive and takes just a lot of compute power and memory and other resources to run. That's why today the only way to run it efficiently is to access it via the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that doesn't mean that we have to run GPT-4 itself on the device. It can be something that is optimized, but that offers the equivalent intelligence. That's what I mean by 1 to 2 years. So yeah, maybe it'll take that long before we have small enough hardware that we can run ourselves. But I think for the benefits of GPT-4 to come to us, I think we don't have to wait more than 2 years for a fine-tuned and optimized model to work. Maybe not in the palm of our hand, but at least in our own home or company.
Yeah, I think it will be gradual. It'll be first GPT-2 or GPT-3 type model that will run on our smartphone, and even a stronger GPT-5. Then we'll definitely have to access that via our laptop, via an internet connection or other stuff. And then step by step, the same way as some certain programs now we still use on our laptop, it will be more and more accessible on our own device Voila, perfect. Louis, thank you very much for this episode. Any final thoughts, or did you make all your predictions already about these large language models?
No, I'm excited to see what's ahead, and a small teaser. It might sound a bit abstract what I mean by the native, how native LLMs will look in the GUI, the graphical era, what that will look like. But we'll explore that in a future episode of what's the final user interface, the final form of LLMs will be like. So stay tuned for that.
Well, now it's still Chatgpt, kind of how we interact with it, but this be
Beyond text, such a killer. I already see it on Apple. Beyond text.
Okay, that's a good one to end. Beyond text, and hopefully you want to listen to the next episode where, or another episode where we'll discuss this even further. Thank you very much for listening to the Unquestioned podcast with Louis de Baarde and Willem Hempe. And we would love to let you come back and listen to another episode.
Oh, the Unquestioned podcast.
Yes, we'll see you soon. Bye bye.